How to win friends and influence people, how to win people to your way of thinking, or on the principle that simply says, get the other person saying yes, yes, immediately. Dale Carnegie shares of a student that he had that was a salesman for the Westinghouse Corporation selling electrical motors. And he was visiting a particular client that they'd serviced for 13 years without selling anything. His predecessor had served 10 years. He had served 3. So 13 years with a customer who had never bought, but who bought a lot from competitors. So they finally made a sale of a few $1,000s in a motor or two. And this young man was excited because he knew that when he went in, that the guy said that if these motors worked, he would buy a lot more. So he was excited when he went in, very confident. When he went in, the gentleman said, "Mr. Allison, I'm done buying motors from you." And he's like, "What? Wait, why?" And he said, "Your motors are far too hot." And he says, I thought to myself, I know they're not. I could argue with him, but I know that doesn't work. So I thought, I'll try this yes, yes principle. And he says, well, doesn't the National Electrical Association of Motors say that motors are supposed to be at 72 degrees above room temperature? And he said, yes, I believe that's true. He said, I got my first yes. And he says, I agree. If our motors are hotter than that, you don't want them. Wouldn't you agree? He goes, absolutely, I agree. And he says, so I said to him, how hot is it in your room where your motors are being tested? And he said, well, it's 75 degrees. And he said, well, if you take 75 degrees and 72 degrees, that's about 147. He goes, wouldn't you agree that that'll scald your hand if you touch that? And the guy laughed and said, yes, you're probably right. And he says, well, then I recommend you don't touch the motors. Turns out they weren't too hot. And guess what happened, my friends? He bought over $35,000 that month. Why? He got 3 yeses in a row instead of arguing. My friends, arguments always bring contention, which always backs the other person into a corner. Get them saying yes, yes immediately, and you both win.